show for all your latest UFC news and rumors. It's Brian Coyle. It's Sean Stanley. It's the TFM Live Podcast. And it's now. And yes, it is now. It's Thursday. We usually do this on a Wednesday. Tonight it's a Thursday, but it's Sean Stanley here with you in beautiful downtown Miami. And now I'm going to welcome into the broadcast my partner, Brian Coyle, and he's not in Miami. He's, where you at this week?
I'm in beautiful New Jersey. It's nice out, dude.
Is it?
This is weird. It was like 70 degrees when I came home from the city today. It was fantastic.
That's considered a heat wave, right?
It's weird. I don't know. I don't get weather anymore around here. But you know what? Also, I don't understand what the hell is going on in the UFC. It's UFC 197 this week. Jon Jones comes back. Kind of a big deal.
Not anymore.
Nobody cares.
Not anymore, it's not.
Nobody cares because of this ongoing saga between Conor McGregor and the UFC. I was sitting in the CBS News offices, what is this, Tuesday now? Yeah. Yep. Tuesday. 2:30, all of a sudden I see on my Twitter timeline, Conor McGregor tweets, "I have decided to retire young. Thanks for the cheese. Catch years later." My first thing I think of, who says thanks for the cheese? He's obviously hacked. This doesn't make any sense at all. And then it kind of just sits there for 10 minutes, a half hour, an hour, 2 hours. Like, what is going on? And then we get this whole big thing. Dana White's on SportsCenter Tuesday night. They've pulled him from UFC 200. This story is one of the craziest things I've ever seen in sports, let alone UFC.
But isn't it a classic example of mine is bigger than yours?
Yes, it is a contest of some sort. That's definitely for sure. And if you haven't heard this story at this point, I would be surprised because McGregor's tweet was tweeted over 160,000 times or something absurd.
Yeah.
The most tweeted tweet by an athlete in the last couple of years. And now we seem to be at a complete impasse. Conor McGregor unretired today because, that's good. We'll get into his whole statement and everything and what position we're in at right now because nobody knows exactly what's going on with this fight. But Sean, what was your initial reaction when you see this? 'Cause I was just dumbfounded about how this exploded.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I looked at it and I had to look twice. And I was like, wait a minute. Because, I get the updates and things like that. And I'm like, this can't be right. But then I'm looking at it going, well, I wouldn't have got the update if something wasn't probably confirmed. And then I started looking into it and I went and a timeline. And then, I saw we had some inner office, text going back and forth at that point too. So I really couldn't believe it. I was just like, really? This can't be happening. And then, of course, Dana White, what happened there, and then he's off of 200, and it's kind of like, all right, wait a minute, something else is going to happen here, and it just snowballed from there. Yeah,
White pulled McGregor Tuesday night from 200, saying Conor didn't want to fulfill his promotional contractual obligations. He didn't want to go to Vegas for this press conference they're having tomorrow. By the way, we're recording this you can hear us live right now, but if you're listening to the podcast, we're recording this Thursday night, so everything could have changed by the time where you actually listen to this. Yeah. McGregor could still be on the card.
Yeah, he might
they could have a new main event. Who the hell knows at this point?
Well, didn't Nate Diaz come out and retire too? So the whole main event has retired.
He said he had nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Which, Nate Diaz can go out and sell.
Well, actually, he said my job here is done.
Yeah. Unless he's selling wolf tickets, dude, this is not this isn't a thing for Diaz to do. He's hurt the most by it.
Yeah.
Because he was going to get the McGregor payday. And if he even got GSP or something like that, this fight is not the biggest fight that they could make without Conor McGregor. It's not even close.
No, I agree 100%. I agree 100%. And look, now he might not even be on the card or whatever. If he really retired, I guess it's whatever. But And it kind of puts UFC at a crazy position because this is UFC 200.
This is it. This is the big one. This is everything that they've been preparing for. And you pull McGregor based on what seems to be a line in the sand that the UFC has obviously drawn, saying that nobody's bigger than us. And if McGregor, who made some, like, they made this out to be Conor didn't want to do any media whatsoever, which, mind you, Conor McGregor is the biggest freaking deal in fighting right now. Period.
Yeah, but see, this is the monster they've created.
Yeah, you asked for this, Dana White.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it is. I mean, and he came out today and really kind of, didn't he kind of, with the text and stuff he sent out today, kind of let you know that that's exactly what the problem is. He said, I'm paid to fight, not paid to promote.
I think Conor McGregor realized that he talked so much in that lead up to Diaz, building up that fight for Dos Anjos, actually. Mm-hmm. And he got tired, and it kind of waned on him, and he got choked out. And I think it kind of hit him like, whoa, maybe I shouldn't be doing all this stuff before my fight, because Diaz is a longer, stronger man, like he said in his whole Facebook post, which you can read part of it on the fullmountmma.com, which you can find multiple articles on this. We're all over this. And McGregor's saying, like, I'm not paid to promote. I've done 50 world tours, 200 press conferences, 1 million interviews. Obviously, he's exaggerating, but he's right at this certain point. He said there had been $10 million allocated for the promotion of this event. So he went, not only saved them $10 million in promotional money, he went and tripled it with one tweet. That tweet that he sent out is going to reach so many more people. It's completely overshadowed everything in sports. Nobody cares about the NBA playoffs. Nobody cares about the NHL playoffs. People who I never thought to even ask a question about mixed martial arts were asking me all of these Conor McGregor questions today. It's the biggest thing in sports right now, with the exception of the NFL draft, maybe. This is, McGregor has done exactly what the UFC would have technically wanted him to do.
Well, and do you think maybe this is in cahoots? This is part of the planning? Because what are you going to do? I mean, honestly, if he went out and he did promotions for this, what is the buildup for this?
It's funny because everyone hated this fight when it was made.
Yeah, and now this makes that fight kind of like, wait a minute, is he retiring or is he not retiring? At least it's building some kind of buzz around 200 right now. It's
either that or it's one of the greatest works of all time. It's incredible. McGregor said he would go to New York and do one of the 3 press conferences was planned. There was one in Vegas tomorrow, one in Stockton, California, because it's the Diaz brother lair. And then you get New York, and McGregor's like, yeah, I'll go from Iceland to New York. I don't want to fly all the way to Vegas, all the way and go to Stockton. Like, there's ways to creatively promote this that didn't involve McGregor being in Vegas. I mean, hell, it would have been the funniest thing in the world if tomorrow you just put Diaz next to a TV with Conor McGregor's face on it and just have him talk to the TV. It would have been surreal. It would have been hilarious. It would have been fantastic. And now, over the fact, it seems like total creative control, the UFC is willing to lose a major, major payday and cut off its nose to spite its face on the biggest event that they've ever put together. I get what the UFC is like. I get their stance. I understand what they're trying to do. Fighters are independent contractors. The last thing they would want is a fighters union. This is the way they're operating their business. They make so much money, and they don't want to provide special treatment to special people because then more fighters will ask for this.
But they've already done that. That's how they've made this problem now.
You're exactly right. Like, you have to take your stars on a case-by-case basis because, I mean, Jon Jones is a tremendous fighter. But if you put Jon Jones, Daniel Cormier as the main event of 200, assuming Jones gets past Ovince Saint Preux, which we'll talk about later in the show, hopefully, because we have this to talk about, it's not as big of a fight. It's not even close.
No.
And I can't believe, because in my mind right now, this fight doesn't happen. The way Dana White and the UFC have been so hardline on this, I would be surprised if they actually turn back.
Well, you really can't right now, can you? Unless it is a sham.
I think they can do whatever they want.
Well, no, they can. But I mean, if you're UFC right now and you cave in after everything you've said, you don't think that sets even more of a precedent for fighters? Hey, if I stand and I balk and they really need me, you think it won't happen every main event?
See, McGregor's the kind of guy who has his power. Rousey has his power.
Yeah, but I think he lost a little bit of that power, and that's where I think this is where I think part of the problem is. UFC, in their eyes right now, he's lost some of that luster after he was choked out. In Conor McGregor's eyes, and probably rightfully so, he don't believe he's lost anything.
Yeah.
So now he's showing UFC that, hey, look, I still got that power.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so, but now here's the other thing is, look, you might have that power, but there's got to be a happy medium. It can't be one extreme or the other extreme, and that's what the problem is right now. It's either McGregor's way, where it's whatever he wants to be paid, or UFC's like, no, you're going to do it for this. And look, I think that hurt him last fight with Nate Diaz, with all of that he was promoting, because I didn't see Diaz, other than the press conferences, he wasn't going to all these other places like McGregor was.
No. And I saw this article, this example online. I forget where I saw it. But how many times did Jose Aldo do a press conference before his fight in December at 194?
I don't think he made two. The two main press conferences, that's it.
And then remember, at that Go Big press conference, he left midway through to go to a wedding.
Mm-hmm.
How much promotion did Conor McGregor do for that fight?
Oh, I mean, he was everything.
He was everything. And now Jose Aldo is a household name because of Conor McGregor. Aldo's a tremendous fighter. He was a 10-year unbeaten streak. But nobody knew who the hell he was as a casual fan until he came up against an opponent who was so loudmouth, so brash, so popular.
Because he's not sexy. Jose Aldo's not the sexy fighter. I mean, he's not the guy. You don't get everything. You don't have the package. He's a great fighter, but that's it. He's kind of like we use it a lot here in the thing and when you look at pro wrestling, Ric Flair is Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor is Ric Flair.
Mm-hmm. Like a guy can work as much as he wants.
Yeah, and then you got Jose Aldo is like your Barry Windham. He's a great worker, but he was so he never got that push because he just didn't have whatever McGregor's got, and he didn't talk.
Only on the FullMountMMA.com's official podcast can you compare Jose Aldo to Barry Windham. You won't get that insight anywhere else.
No way, buddy. I was trying to think of somebody nowadays, but everybody gets pushed nowadays, I guess. I mean,
Cesaro. There's your
Slater.
answer to that one. But, this is the kind of insanity we're talking about.
No, that's exactly what it is. And it's funny because they created it themselves without even thinking about it, because I think they were so nearsighted that they're like, this isn't going to come to an end. And then Diaz made it come to a little bit of an end, and now they're trying to reel it back in, but it's too late.
They're deathly afraid of a fighters union.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
Could you imagine if McGregor and Diaz came together to start that? Wow.
This is the problem here. Because, there's so much to talk about with this segment, because it's opened up so many avenues.
Oh.
McGregor, once he said he was retired, quote unquote, how many fighters came up? Oh, I'll take the spot. I'll take the spot. I'll take the spot. Everybody came out of the woodwork. I'll do it for 1/10 of McGregor's price.
Yeah.
And headline UFC 200.
Yeah, but 1/10 of his price is a great payday.
I know, but people, anybody would have wanted the UFC 200 spot. Mm-hmm. I mean, Jon Jones said, if they want me to headline 200, I'd love to headline 200. And Jon Jones was in favor of what McGregor was doing. He talked about it in his media availability for 197. The fight game is so, I need to get me over before I'm not going to work with these other fighters. And there's so many promotions. That's why free agency is so interesting now. And the problem is there's no promotion, as much as Bellator wants to do this, there's no promotion that can go toe to toe with the UFC. There's no, WCW and WWE back in the day in the Monday Night Wars, you got guaranteed contracts out of that. You saw guys working out their contract and going over to the other show. The UFC doesn't have that competition where they have to get nervous about guys leaving. Roy McDonald is going to play out his contract, but if you're going to tell me that Roy McDonald is going somewhere else, in the words of Nick Diaz, I'm selling you wolf tickets. That's not happening. Like the UFC is so powerful, and if they had just they don't have to treat their fighters better. It would behoove them to do so. And this is a kind of thing, like, the UFC could still be this big bad entity, and you could do a Conor versus the UFC, like, promotion sort of thing, and it would be the biggest freaking thing in the world. And the UFC would be raking in money, and they wouldn't care. Like, this fight has become so big, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it's completely overshadowed 197, which is unfortunate, because that's an amazing card. But it's created this buzz unlike, anything else. Boxing is floundering. How many, when you look at Pacquiao Bradley, which was supposed to be a big fight, it did 400,000 pay-per-view buys. It was a terrible flop. You have this golden goose that you can get at least one more big fight out of, and you could look at a 9-figure revenue fight, opening up a new arena in Las Vegas with all the world looking, an amazing card setup. And you're gonna lose everything just based on your own ego and the fact that you don't want to set a precedent to make the lives of fighters a little bit better.
But doesn't it go back to what you, I believe, said last week or the week before with what, was it Fertitta you said it? That,
no fighter is bigger than the UFC.
Yep.
The UFC is the product.
Yep.
They have to realize, like, UFC is a terrific organization. It's all over the place. It's got such a great talent pool. But if I'm a young fighter right now and I see this and I see the way, like, how Ronda Rousey got completely burnt out, how McGregor's seemingly burnt out, like, at this point, am I thinking maybe I want to go somewhere else and become this major superstar and carry the mold for this other company and become big? Or do I want to go through this UFC machine and get burnt out? Because you have to take into account, McGregor is doing, he called it every Tom and Susie bleeping morning show. Like, the UFC has to realize, like, certain guys, you have to spread out their media appearances. Anthony Pettis talked about this today at his media bell.
You can't have the guys doing like for instance, say we ask for, media, for one of the guys to come on here. We would probably get, right now, UFC would probably try to give us Conor McGregor. Whereas we would probably, get, Pettis or somebody like, I'm just saying, I'm using us as an example because, as they're saying, like, the sports centers, you see Conor McGregor. Fox Sports 1, you see Conor McGregor.
Yeah.
Then you go to even the smaller things. I saw an interview by somebody from like Charleston MMA show, and it was Conor McGregor was on the phone with them. And it's like, wait a minute. This guy, this is not even, they don't deserve to, not saying they don't deserve, but Conor McGregor should be your guy to go to Fox Sports 1. Your Good Morning Americas. I think WWE, and I'm sorry I do this so much that I put them on there, but you don't see your John Cena's all the time doing the small things, they threw Titus O'Neil on with the one show on E and things like that. They spread them out. They don't just have all their big names go and do everything, whereas UFC, they just throw the guy everywhere.
It's a media strategy. It's the marketing strategy. And I get it. You want to overexpose these fighters because, Holly Holm, after she won
isn't
the
that
title,
old? Isn't that old? That's like their old school thinking. Back when they weren't what they are today, I think you had to do that because nobody knew who anybody else was. But today, people kind of know who Holly Holm is now. They know who, Pettis is. They know who, again, I don't think you want one of the Diaz brothers going on any show, but, they know who some of these people are. You don't have to just throw your big guns out there and be like, hey, look.
Yeah, I understand exactly where you're coming from because I get you have to realize the way your stars, if you want to create these superstars which they have done, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
They have to realize at a certain point, the less availability you give them, the more people clamor for them. The more like it's simple supply and demand.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to overexpose people, it all gets twisted. And
Yep.
I just it's such a preventable thing. And if Conor backed out and wanted more money, and it's just a power play, I mean, number one, he's not his value. He's completely getting on the cheap because of how much money the UFC makes hand over fist compared to the boxing fighters and all these other promotions or whatever. If McGregor made $10 million, he'd probably still be underpaid for this card. But he was the first fighter ever to get $1 million just straight from that the disclosed payday. We don't know how much fighters make. So it's a whole weird situation, and I don't know how it's going to work out.
And it goes to another thing that, should they get paid for their, media appearances? If they put a $10 million budget aside, you don't think some of these fighters deserve some of that, especially since you took away their sponsorship money for the Reebok deal? You're doing all this, and they're not, again, they're getting paid to fight, don't get me wrong. But not all of them are getting, the same amount of pay. They're not all getting these great paydays, and then you have them doing, what you feel is their, I guess, job leading up to the fight by promoting it, but they're putting money in your pockets. They're not getting any more of that. They've already agreed to the money they're getting on the fight. So why not cut them some of that money if they're promoting it so well?
I saw a great quote on Twitter today about Chuck Liddell, how Chuck Liddell would get paid for promotions, but he'd fight for free.
Yeah, I mean, they probably make more money doing that. Some of these guys. All right, we're going to step aside real quick. We'll be right back here on the Full Mount MMA. For all your latest news and rumors of the UFC, go to thefullmountmma.com. Now back to the TFM Live podcast. Here's Brian Coyle and Sean Stanley. All right, Sean Stanley, Brian Coyle, back with you here. We're going to continue on with our Conor McGregor UFC. I guess we could call it a debacle.
Yeah, I think it's fair at this point to call it a debacle because that's what it is so far. And apologies to anybody listening right now. And if you're getting a little audio issues, we're trying to figure that out right now. Currently, I think it's back to normal though, Sean.
Yeah, it's sounding a lot better. So hopefully we've worked it out on our end, and now we can crush the UFC and Conor McGregor debacle.
See, it's funny because sometimes I get the feeling you're not listening to me, but then I realized it was actually a delay because, sometimes I say a lot of things that we disagree on a lot of things. And we'll talk about something I want to get into about Jon Jones later on in the show that we seem to disagree and now we agree on at this point. Especially after I saw your article today on the fullmountmma.com, which everyone can check out.
Yes, I can.
But getting into this whole Conor McGregor situation again, where does the UFC go if they don't make this fight? It's 10:50 on Thursday night. Right now, this fight is off, and it could be on. All of this we talked about previously could be just BS at this point because McGregor and Diaz could be back on by the press conference tomorrow. But where do they go if they don't have this fight?
I mean, where can you go? What are you going to do?
Canada.
I mean, honestly though, what can you right now? You've got Tate right now was the right?
I don't know what the co-main event is.
Wait, the hasn't even been announced yet, right?
Yes, White said on SportsCenter he was working on 2 fights. One, I'm guessing, which could have been the co-main event, and then whatever the replacement main event was.
But Tate Nunes is on that card right now, right? Is that 200 or is that something else? Am I thinking
No,
of?
Tate Nunes is on 200. You're
okay,
right.
So we got that one on 200 now. There's still 2 fights now. They're going to have to make those 2 blockbuster fights if they can't do here. And then, we're going to talk about it here in a little bit. And something that I don't think is going to happen, but here's a monkey wrench. What if OSP wins?
Oh, my gosh. I mean,
everybody's looking at it and going, okay, Jon Jones should have an easy fight, be ready for 200. But what if they said the same thing about Rousey and Holm?
It's so weird to think because when you look at I wrote this in the 3 reasons why. It's funny. When you look on our website, it says 3 reasons why Jon Jones will win and 3 reasons why Ovince Saint Preux can win. Because when you look at the article I wrote about Ovince Saint Preux, number one, you don't know how hard it is to figure out 3 reasons why somebody can beat Jon Jones.
Hey, I told you my reason.
Like, it's really, really difficult. One of the most difficult things I've had to do for a site. But this puts the UFC in real trouble if it's not McGregor. Because Diaz probably wants to be on that card. He wants the payday. And it would screw him over. He's doing everything. He's showing up on time, which is a miracle for Nate Diaz.
Isn't it funny? He's looking like the angel in all this.
I know. That's the craziest. Out of all this stuff, Nate Diaz and the Diaz
Let me
brothers
ask you
are coming
this.
out next.
Does Diaz get a title shot then out of this if McGregor doesn't go?
But the problem is Diaz isn't a welterweight. And Dos Anjos is fighting Eddie Alvarez that week on Fight Pass, which, oh, by the way, we should talk about that, but nobody cares about that
Can we get
either.
the Lawler fight?
The Lawler-Woodley fight's been rumored now, too.
What about Lawler-Diaz? 200.
But does Nate Diaz deserve a title shot?
I'm not saying he deserves it, but hey, look, if you're going to try to make some money, you got to do something.
This is the situation they've put themselves in.
Yeah, I mean, if you got no McGregor, the next biggest fight, I think, especially because you got Diaz has been working for 170 a catch weight.
Yeah,
I mean,
the next biggest fight is Diaz GSP or Lawler GSP.
Yeah, but do you want? I don't know, man. I don't know. Look, I know everybody GSP. I want to see him back in there, but I don't know. Look, you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know what you're going to get with GSP in this fight. Do you make that your main event?
The backup main event has to be Jones Cormier if Jones wins. That's the only thing, and it's a loss because you see this and you think, how did they not figure this out beforehand? Is it really Conor McGregor pulling this diva attitude?
Well, you remember, we talked about this. We said, they're putting all their eggs in these baskets. And what happens if the baskets start falling off? Rousey fell off.
Yeah.
And now McGregor's starting to fall off. And their backups, I believe, at one point was Northcutt and Paige Van Zandt. That got derailed.
Yeah, Tage Northcutt is on that card, though, but he's fighting a Tough Latin America 2 Tough Latin America 3, finalist. You have to. The UFC has to realize this, and I just can't believe that they're going to go through with this. I don't get it.
Yeah, but again, we go back to this. We're kind of, going back and forth on it. It's another game of, hey, mine's bigger than yours, but they've already said UFC is no fighter is bigger than the UFC. If they go back on it, there's a fighter that's bigger than the UFC.
It's such a weird thing. I don't really understand the mindset. I don't know how this wasn't figured out beforehand. If this is a giant work, then it's fantastic. But if it's not, the UFC they just look bad. Because Conor McGregor's statement he put out today was, for all intents and purposes, it's pretty heartfelt. Cry for a guy who's making hand over fist every time he fights. But, it looks reasonable. And you can't paint him out to be this crazy guy.
No, you can't, but at the same time, is it unreasonable for UFC to think that, wait a minute, if we do it for you, then we got to do it from a business standpoint. You can also see it from the UFC side.
And this is the problem. There's no one in the UFC like Conor McGregor. So, you have to realize special people get special treatment. That's the way the world works. It sucks, but that's the way the world works. We saw this with the Chicago Bulls a week ago when players were complaining about Jimmy Butler getting special treatment. Well, guess what? Jimmy Butler's the best player on that terrible team. So, yeah, stars are going to get better treatment. I'm sorry. I don't get, like, if McGregor's still going to do the press conference in New York, you can work around it. You can book around that. You can do everybody in Las Vegas. You do Diaz solo in Stockton. You do McGregor solo in New York. There's ways to make it work. And the inflexibility just screams to me like this is a giant ego check, and they're not willing to make the most money in the end, because that's what the UFC is a business. If you want to make the most money, you have to go out and sometimes do things you don't want to do.
But let me ask you this now: are they worried that maybe they're worried that this fight might not sell like last time, so they want both of them to be there so you can get that whole? Remember, McGregor is a showman.
Yes.
He feeds off the other guy being there. We saw him. He jumped over, grabbed the belt from Aldo, did the thing. He gets under people's skin. Is he going to be as good by himself? Is that what UFC's worried about?
You're going to let an Irish dude who's got an ego the size of the Empire State Building sit in Madison Square Garden and pontificate for a half hour with reporters asking him questions? I think it would work out pretty good.
I would, but apparently UFC, I think, is I mean, again, I'm just playing, that look, they're a business too, so they got to go. If you do this, and I can understand what you're saying, where, guys are going to get special, preparation, I'm sorry,
yeah.
and thing like that, but at what point you got to stop the bleeding? You got to stop the bleeding. If it's say it's whatever, it's 10 million this fight. What is it next fight? What is it the fight after that? What is it the fight after that? Where does it stop? And then other fighters start adding it in. Where does it stop? I know UFC's making money hand over fist, and I understand most of the fighters aren't. But look, you're agreeing to these contracts. You're agreeing to the fights. So you can't really be all that upset if you're agreeing to this.
And that's the thing. If he's backing out on the contract thing, I understand where the UFC's coming from. I just think they have to realize that they're not the ones with the power in this situation for the first time in the history of the promotion.
But see, they think they are.
And that's why we're here. And this is why we're here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Talking about this on a Thursday night in April for a July fight.
Isn't that hilarious?
It's so funny. A lot of people are forgetting to laugh.
Yeah. And the worst part about it is it's no longer a fight in July, apparently.
I mean, it's not a fight at this point. Yeah, you go on the UFC's website like I did today. It's to be announced versus to be determined as the main event.
Oh, I love those two TBAs against TBD.
I really hope they figure out a way to put this fight together, because not only is it it's the biggest moneymaker, fans all of a sudden are very into this fight, which, I mean, if this was a work to try to get this fight to have interest, I mean, you got national television, sports television opinionists, if you will, talking about this who have never seen a UFC fight. You're getting major coverage, breaking news in the Sports Center. This is the biggest thing in sports right now. And UFC is rarely the biggest thing in the world, and they should take advantage of this opportunity and not let it pass it by. Because, man, if this fight goes by the wayside and they lose out on tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars because of this, this is going to be looked back upon as a major misstep, regardless of the precedent it could set for the UFC. I just don't get it. I really don't understand it.
Well, I mean, again, I think it goes back to, you talk about how big Conor McGregor's ego is. How big is, Fertitta and Dana White and them. They have to believe that their product is bigger than every fighter. And I think they're seeing that, maybe we got a little chink in this armor. Yeah. But you can't go back on what you said. Mm-hmm. Could you imagine if they go back on what they said right now? Could you imagine the tweets that will be out there tomorrow? Honestly, think about this. Cowboy Cerrone, what do you think his first tweet's going to be? Cal Sonnen, what do you think his tweet's going to be?
You have to be prepared to deal with the backlash, or you don't do this in public.
Well, it's too late now.
That's the problem. Like, if this was such a big issue, you solve this. You don't let this get out to this
But
point.
then let me ask you this, though, because how do they know that Conor McGregor was going to come out and do this?
Obviously,
Conor McGregor pushed the issue by coming out and saying, hey, I'm retiring. Thanks for the cheese, y'all.
Well, I think there were some negotiations before, like the week, from what I've read, a week before this is when this started kind of happening. And if you didn't solve it, you're just exposing yourself to this. And it's funny. Ariel Helwani brought this up on a podcast with the Ringer's David Shoemaker yesterday. I thought it was pretty interesting. When Conor talks about the UFC, he talks about the Fertitas and like, oh, I'm making money with Lorenzo. How often does he talk about Dana White? Not that often. So McGregor's shooting for the top, and nobody talks about the Fertitas like McGregor does. So this is it. McGregor realizes the promotional power that he has, and it's much different compared to any other fighter. And White's coming out on SportsCenter and saying, "Oh, we pulled him for this, we pulled him." It doesn't look like he goes on Colin Cowherd and Cowherd softballing him questions. It's just to make the UFC look great, and it just does. It comes off as like it doesn't come off well. I don't know. That's my opinion on them.
No, I mean, I can agree with your end of it. I just also think that they are looking at it as their business, and the problem they've made for themselves is they've painted themselves in a corner because I don't think they thought that a fighter would be able to get bigger than the UFC, but they have allowed a fighter to get bigger than the UFC, and they forgot one thing. There's this thing called social media.
Yeah.
That wasn't around back in the day, and I don't think and again, I don't say they because, again, Dana White uses social media, UFC uses social media, great, but I don't know if they understood the power that one tweet had.
It's amazing. And before we tap off this segment and then talk about, I don't know, Mighty Mouse and Jon Jones, possibly the two best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, I'll give you an update on how many retweets did Conor McGregor, thanks for the cheese, retirement tweet has. It's up to 170,000 and 140,000 likes. Like, this is the power that one fighter has. And it's pretty scary. And it scares the hell out of the UFC. And we'll see what happens. We're going to try to get this as a podcast up as soon as possible because who knows, by the time this is up, I mean, you can have clearance on what actually is going to be the main event of 200. But, Sean, there is another awesome fight card this week.
What? There is?
Yes. I mean, we can't even get in. We don't even have time to talk about UFC Tampa, which saw, unfortunately, Rashad Evans take a brutal knockout from Glover Teixeira. And
you know it's bad when you got to ask the ref what happened.
And I feel so bad because Rashad's such a terrific person.
Yes.
I mean, we had a great interview with him the week before the fight. But, man, Glover Teixeira looked good.
Yeah,
and
I take back everything I wrote about him.
Yeah, and I'm getting his name right forever and ever for now. Don't worry about that. I'm not going to confuse him with Shogun ever again.
That's good. That's good to know. I was trying to figure out how you mixed that up anyways, but that's all right.
Yeah, that's amazing that happened as long as it did on the podcast last week. And then the return of Khabib Nurmagomedov against Darrell Horcher, who Khabib looked, like the undefeated Sambo champion.
Horcher lasted longer than I thought he would, all right?
Yeah, that's true. But moving on, UFC 197. The first thing I want to talk about.
Heard something about that one.
Yeah. We did a 3 and out, as we do every week. At this point, it's becoming a little running segment here on the site at the Full Mount. You can find us on Twitter at BCoil11 at SF Sports Talk. For Sean, there's no love for Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson. He's fighting this weekend. He's probably the best champion the UFC has right now. He's cleared out the flyweight division, with the exception of Henry Cejudo. he fights this week. But he's a co-main event, and he doesn't seem to draw that well. Why is that?
Is this a question you're asking me?
Yeah, this is a question I'm asking you. I have my own answer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're probably hitting around the same area, I believe, but to me, it all goes around, look, the competition. I mean, if there's nobody there, and look, Cejudo, not going to say he's not going to be competition. I mean, he's undefeated.
Yep.
But you're looking at, when I looked at the top three, and this was something that I was like, wait a minute. When I looked at the top three, Johnson's already beat the top two twice each.
Yeah.
I mean, and then your third guy is Cejudo, who's, kind of, I won't say new to the game, but I mean,
relatively, yeah.
That's your competition. How do you build a fight with hey, watch this guy beat the guy? That's the problem they're going to have with the Miesha Tate and Ronda Rousey fight.
Yeah.
You've already beat a person twice. How do you promote that? He's got to look for super fights or move some weight classes.
The reason why I said that Johnson was the next fight for Dominic Cruz was for Demetrious Johnson.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I think Henry Cejudo is going to give him a little bit of trouble. He is an Olympic gold medalist.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's competition, but not the competition that you can that's going to draw a fight. You know what I'm saying? I think that's what I mean. Like, it's not a payday for Mighty Mouse.
No, it's not a money fight. And as much as Cejudo could give him trouble, which I would not be surprised if he did, because he can probably go. Like, he can go these 5 rounds. The way Mighty Mouse does, he's so perfect and intricate with every single thing that he does. And he can go for 5 rounds. He can go for 7 rounds. He can probably go for 10 rounds. This guy is an absolute stud in every single thing that he can do. His punches are always on point and accurate. His grappling, his speed around the octagon is unmatched in the sport's history, in my opinion. But the competition, I think, has a part to it. But he's a flyweight. And unfortunately, that hurts him. It shouldn't, because he's the best athlete that the UFC probably has right now. But when people are sitting at home and they see a guy who's 5'5", 125 pounds, the casual MMA, like the casual fan will go, "Oh, I could beat that guy. I'm bigger than him," and it's that it's an idiotic way to look at things. But this is the fight. These are the people that you draw. Like it's not just intelligent fans. It's people who've never seen the sport before.
Yep.
And when you see Mighty Mouse, it's not a guy who's like, oh my God, like he's got the look.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't. And
yeah, but I remember his weight class. What is it, 125?
125.
I mean, how many 125 guys? Honestly, when you're walking down the street, there's 125 pound guys that could probably take me in a heartbeat. But if I'm walking down the street and I look at him, I'm not going, you know what? That's a guy I want to watch. I'm not.
It's not. And McGregor at 145, number one, he's a big featherweight. But McGregor's got the mouth.
Yeah, that's the other thing that helps him.
And Mighty Mouse is a very smart, intelligent, witty guy. But he's not going to play. He doesn't play this creative, imaginative game. He drops like knowledge on what he's going to say and what he's going to do, and then he goes out and do it. And unfortunately,
that doesn't sell.
It doesn't sell. And it's like he can't, if he doesn't cut a promo, he doesn't have the look, he's not going to be this star that we want him to be. And it blows, because I love watching Mighty Mouse fight. It's one of the most, like, it's a thrill to watch a guy like that work, because when he's gone and we see a bunch of the belt changing in the flyweight division all the time, it's going to be like, wow, I miss watching Mighty Mouse fight. Like, he was perfect. He did all these crazy things in the flyweight division that we've never seen before. And I don't think he's getting appreciated for what it is. And he just can't get higher than he is right now.
No, I agree with that. But also, I think, I mean, you can't. That's not a division you can really build. You can't have guys move down to that division or move. I mean, I don't know anybody that can drop down to 125. I mean, even if you're at the 135, whatever, move down to 125. There's nothing you can do.
People are moving up.
No, I know that, but I'm saying, there's nothing you can do to like try to give them competition. That's not a division that you can just feed people. Like, say, like 205, you can move a heavy 205 guy kind of up to heavyweight if you wanted to push him as a heavyweight. He might be a light heavyweight guy, but he could still go. Like the Jon Jones, they were talking about maybe he might take a journey into heavyweight. That's something that you can do. You can't really do anything with the 125. There's no way for the UFC to build competition for him other than, I guess you could do the what was the CM Punk sweepstakes thing that Dana White was doing?
The looking for a fight.
Yeah, I guess you can start try to find 125 pounders, I guess, that way.
Well, remember, the new season of The Ultimate Fighter was supposed to be whoever, it's all flyweights, and the winner gets a shot at Mighty Mouse.
Yeah.
But those tryouts were canceled, I believe. So, I don't know.
Mighty Mouse didn't like that idea because he's like, wait a minute. What are you saying about my championship? He can't, it's like, that's like a slap in the face. It's like saying, hey, we're going to hold tryouts for anybody over 225 and the winner gets to fight for the heavyweight title. I mean, it's ridiculous.
It's the plot of Rocky 1 where they just go out and find a guy to fight Apollo Creed.
It almost is. And unfortunately, that's kind of where UFC is at to try to build him some competition.
Yeah.
You're going to have a guy for 9 weeks on TV. Hopefully you build him up to be a star, so you try to sell that fight against Mighty Mouse. That's what I think their whole plan was.
Yeah.
You're trying to build the star in 9 weeks of programming so Mighty Mouse has an opponent.
It's amazing. It really is. And I feel bad. It's a superficial problem, but it's a real issue. And it's a real problem that Mighty Mouse can't sell a pay-per-view on his own.
But now, I think it has to go with, like you said earlier too, is that, again, I hate, people do not want to admit this, but when you see somebody that you look at and you go, I think I could take that guy, regardless if you think you can or not, you're not going to pay to watch that guy fight.
Yeah, and Johnson, he's not this crazy knockout artist that drops people immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And he fights so technically beautiful. It's not appealing to the drunk college kid on a Saturday night with a bunch of buddies that wants to watch a UFC fight. It's like, to me and you watching this, it's like an artist painting a beautiful picture. But to everyone else, like, fans are drawn to phenoms. I wrote this. People loved Muhammad Ali because he was the perfect combination of size and speed. People loved Tyson because he would knock people out immediately. Like, Mighty Mouse is great, but he's Mighty Mouse, and that's all we can get from him.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's just, he's a great fighter for us that like MMA, follow MMA, and the art of MMA, but he's not that guy that is going to catch your eye if you're just passing through.
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad. But hopefully this can change. If not, we're going to see Mighty Mouse tied to some great cards as the co-main event, or maybe a Fox main event, or anything of the like.
Maybe he can turn into the Fight Night or the UFC Fight Pass champion of the world.
Hell, they're putting Rafael Dos Anjos on Fight Pass.
That is crazy. When I saw that, I was like, really?
I get what they want to do, but it's too much too soon.
I just think champions on there is ridiculous.
And a guy who was going to fight McGregor is now on Fight Pass.
You think that's punishment?
For getting hurt? Who knows?
Or do you think they honestly thought he was hurt? And they're like, look, we're not going to give you a big payday. Pay-per-view payday. You're going to get a Fight Pass payday. It's
the draconian line in the sand that the UFC has drawn.
No fighter bigger than us.
Yeah, that's the way it goes. You know what? Let's. We got some time here. You want to just dive right into the UFC 197 card?
Let's do it.
All right. So, it's awesome. That's the first thing. there's a lot of, before we get to the three main fights, Pettis, Barbosa, Mighty Mouse, Cejudo, and Jones St. Preux, is there a certain fight or fighter that you see on this card that it really intrigues you on 197?
Bringing up the whole card here real quick.
Well, while you do that, I'll go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Robert Whittaker fights Rafael Natal in the, I guess, fourth fight. The New Zealander who he looked really good in his last fight. He was on the UFC 193 card, whatever the Rousey home card was, where he beat Uriah Hall by unanimous decision, and he's on a 4-fight winning streak right now, and his last loss came against Wonderboy Thompson via knockout. So, I mean, Wonderboy's an absolute fantastic fighter, and I can't wait to see him fight in Ottawa on that card. What's it? Wonderboy and Cowboy? I think that's the or is it Wonderboy Roy McDonald, excuse me. I
was thinking, I'm like, wait a minute, what?
Cowboy's on that card against somebody. I think it's Patrick Cote. But regardless, Whittaker is the type of fighter who's very well rounded, but also can throw these unorthodox strikes that really tend to mess with people. And a guy like Natal, this should be a showcase for him to kind of move up a little bit in the middleweight conversation. Remember, he was supposed to fight Michael Bisping in Australia before Bisping went out with a hand injury. So he's the kind of guy I look at, and if he goes out and puts on a fight of the night performance on this card, I think we could see a lot more of him in the middleweight division. What's your fight to watch?
No, I mean, I'm just looking through the card here. I'm looking at some of these guys, and I'm almost looking at I'm just looking at, I'm just looking through here. I see Esparza.
Yeah, Carlos Esparza, of course, the former strawweight champion, fighting Juliana Lima.
Yeah, I mean, there's some interesting matches. I'm looking down here way down at the Fight Pass card here. Kevin Lee. I just look at different. I like him, because of the wrestling and things like that. Nothing really stands out like one other than what you just spoke of there. Other than your top three.
It's
really,
funny.
I mean,
you're missing one fantastic part about this card. Andre Fili, who has the second greatest nickname in the history of the UFC, behind Corey Beeston 25.
Oh my
Anderson.
God, are you kidding me? That's his nickname for real?
Andre Touchy Fili?
Oh my goodness, I love it. I love it.
Come on, you can't get any better. I've heard a lot about Yair Rodriguez too, who's 7-1 going into this fight.
Yeah, he's looking pretty good.
So I think that's a fight to watch.
It could be, but again, the funny part about a lot of this stuff is that when they get on these main cards, they don't end up being the same fighter that they wore.
Yeah,
and again, like I don't think I could be the same fighter I was either. I've never been in a spotlight like that, but it just seems like every time we sit here and we talk about who we expect, that they never seem to. Maybe it's us. They just never seem to fill out on the fight the way we thought they would.
I mean, we build these guys up way too much.
Apparently, yeah, I think we do.
Yeah, but I mean, some people. That's why we can appreciate the guys who live up to the hype so much.
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
And speaking of a fight that's going to live up to the hype, because I really, really, really wanted it to, Anthony Showtime Pettis, Edson Barbosa, in a kicking fight for the ages. Oh. Holy shnikes, this is going to be amazing.
There's going to be some welts.
Dude, Edson Barbosa, watching him fight, I literally cringe every time somebody gets hit with one of those kicks.
Yeah, who was it that he fought the last time that had the welts on their back?
Paul Felder?
I think that's who it was. I think it was Felder.
I mean, you had the fight between him and Tony Ferguson, didn't you? Mm-hmm. That was his last fight.
Yeah.
And Ferguson, that's why I gave him the Battle Droid nickname. And it sucks that we didn't get to see him against Nurmagomedov, but like Barbosa is this type of fighter who's going to go out there and put on a freaking show. And Pettis, this is a huge fight for him. coming off of a bad performance against Eddie Alvarez, who basically neutralized Showtime. Everything that we know Anthony Pettis for was completely put away. His tremendous stand-up game, he's very difficult to wrangle on the ground.
He's creative. He does a lot of he creates a lot of things for himself.
I don't know who's your pick here, because I mean I'm a fan of Barbosa, the way he fights, and this is a major fight for Showtime. Who do you got in this scenario? You think?
I mean, I think, look, Pettis has got to come back and look good here. He's got to live up to that Showtime nickname here, and I'm going to go with Pettis.
I mean, he is a former champion, so you never want to discount Showtime Pettis. I think Barbosa gives him a real great run here, but I agree. I think this fight goes the distance, and I think Anthony Pettis wins, but it's going to be close.
There's going to be a lot of icing down afterwards from the kicks.
Yes, I think Barbosa has a real opportunity here, though. If he connects high with one of those kicks, and if he works the body the first couple of rounds, it could be lights out.
Yeah, no, I think it can go either way. And again, if Pettis lets guard down, Barbosa can make you pay quickly with the feet.
And speaking of quick feet, Demetrious Johnson, Henry Cejudo, as we mentioned, co-main event. What can Cejudo do to have a chance against Demetrious Johnson?
Take him down and hold him down.
So
control the fight. Our favorite thing. Make it ugly, baby. Make it ugly.
The official motto of the FullMountMMA.com.
Yeah, make it ugly. That's what you got to do. Because let me tell you something right now. Henry Cejudo might be the messenger, but Mighty Mouse is looking to send a message.
He's going to deliver a package right into his face, man. Demetrious Johnson, I see Cejudo being like watching Johnson's last fight against Horiguchi. I was like, if Horiguchi had a couple more fights underneath his belt, I think this could be a little bit more interesting than it was. Mm-hmm. And I think that holds true here for Cejudo, because he's being thrown at these 3 or 4-0 in the UFC. Yeah. And I just see the way Mighty Mouse conducts himself. It's money. Guy is the fastest person in the UFC. The speed, the agility, the movement, it's unparalleled in the sport. And I just can't pick against him.
You know what's funny, too, is I'm looking at this, and, Cejudo is a world-class, wrestler and things like that. His takedown accuracy is not that good. 33%. Mighty Mouse has a better takedown accuracy than Henry Cejudo. That's
interesting, because he's the third. I heard this. He's the third ever Olympic gold medalist in the history of the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, now takedowns defended, he's at 100%, but his accuracy is only at 33. Maybe because he shoots so much.
Yeah, it could. You know what it is? I mean, he Mighty Mouse shoots more than him, according to the UFC's fight stats. But I just find this. If Cejudo can stuff all these takedowns, which this is why this wrestling background gets so interesting, I want to see Mighty Mouse kind of just try to pick away at him. And Cejudo, who's got this tremendous wrestling background, as a striker, we don't know what he's going to do against tough, high-level competition.
Yeah, no, true. Very true.
And this could be his first test of, UCA Formiga, Chico Camas, these aren't names that scream elite. You're fighting the best pound-for-pound fighter possibly in the world.
Yeah.
I have a hard time believing that you're going to be able to stop him. And I think it's going to be I think it'll be, he'll play with him for the first couple rounds, but when Mighty Mouse gets going, I think it's going to be over.
I cannot agree more.
I see a decision in the future, though.
Really? I think it's no decision, huh?
Yes, I see a unanimous decision in favor of Mighty Mouse.
I think there's going to be a stoppage in that one.
Yeah. Okay.
That's going to be a 5-rounder, right? That's for the belt.
That is a 5-rounder. That's a championship.
Double five rounders.
One thing that we both, I believe, won't think will be a 5-round.
Yeah.
Would be the main event between Jon Jones and Ovince Saint Preux, the former Tennessee college football player, 33 years old, who everyone describes as a prospect, including me. So even though he is 33, the Raw OSP against the returning Jon Bones Jones. I wrote an article explaining why Ovince Saint Preux can beat Jon Jones.
Yes, you did.
This was my job, eloquated to me by the higher-ups here at the Full Mountain.
Somebody don't like you.
I literally saw the email and texted back, I have to come up with 3 reasons.
Hey, we threw our input on what we thought it would be, you know.
And then I literally got back like, no, just do it. Do your best. So I did my best, and I will explain to you how Ovince Saint Preux can win this fight. Of course, OSP had been on a roll until he ran into the hulking Glover Teixeira, who has been on an absolute roll. This was at UFC Fight Night Nashville in August. Saint Preux has beaten Rafael Cavalcante, who is not in the UFC anymore.
That's easy for you to say.
Patrick Cummins and Shogun Rua in his last 3 wins. He lost to Ryan Bader in a fight where he looked pretty lost, so he's 3-2 in his last 5 fights. St. Preux is an interesting one. I like him as a fighter. This is way too big of a jump in competition for him. Jon Jones is Jon Jones, which we'll get to. Don't worry. I'm saving that the best for last. He's in a Nate Diaz situation. He's getting a guy on short notice. Jones is not prepared for an unorthodox striker. OSP fights on instinct. He doesn't really follow the rules at all when it comes to grappling, wrestling, striking. It's very different. He doesn't defend the way you expect someone to defend. He's going out there and looking to drop you with a left hook. And that's his game plan, and he's sticking to it. And Jones has cage rust. I mean, he hasn't fought since January of last year. So it is there. The problem being, if Jones wants to take a round or 2 to get into it, OSP could be gassed by the middle of round 2. He's the type of fighter that doesn't tend to survive when things go longer. He is unpredictable. He does go for stoppages. And they do wear the tiny gloves. And if he hits him just square, right on the chin, Jon Jones could theoretically go down. Realistically, I give OSP a very, very slim to none chance at winning this fight. I would be shocked. Bigger shock than Holly Holm beating Ronda Rousey. Shock. If Ovince Saint Preux somehow beats Jon Jones. I'm not far off here.
You're right on the door, buddy.
So, explain the 3 reasons that, I mean, I could have come up with 100.
Yours was 3 reasons OSP can beat. Mine is 3 reasons Jon Jones wins at UFC 197. I'm not even going to say can win, might win. He's going to walk out of UFC 197 the champion. The interim champion.
Yes, interim, your favorite word.
Yeah, I'm so happy that there's an interim title going on here. So, here we go. One, look, Jon Jones, look, all the stuff, hopefully he's behind him now, all the out of the octagon stuff. He's focused on fighting. You're seeing him actually posting photos of him training. He's ready to go.
Yeah.
He's had a full camp. He was preparing for Daniel Cormier, which, look, he didn't want to lose to Daniel Cormier, so I'm sure he was training extra hard to begin with. And now you're putting him in there with OSP.
Poor OSP.
And we just talked about it. You know, he's coming off a decision win over how'd you say that guy's name? Rafael
Cavalcante.
Yep, there you go, that guy. And Glover Teixeira, a submission loss. So, it's not a good look for OSP just right there.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, let's get into some numbers of Jon Jones. Yes, he's been out for 16 months.
Mm-hmm.
All right? But he's got a 12-fight UFC winning streak in the division.
To me, he has a 22-fight winning streak in the UFC.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. But I'm going off of the stats here.
Yes.
5 fighters that have held an undisputed UFC championship belt.
Yep.
All right? He's actually been taken down now, takedowns twice in his 22-fight MMA career. 35 of 37.
First guy to take down Cormier as well.
Yeah. And one of those guys that took him down was Cormier.
Mm-hmm.
And then, my final reason, and really I just wanted to put one reason, and I was going to put this for each one, but I thought it would make for a silly article.
Yes.
But he's Jon Jones.
He is Jon Jones. That is true.
And I went back to the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right now, Jon Jones, he's the number one in the latest UFC light heavyweight and pound for pound rankings. And guess what? He may have been out of the octagon for 16 months. You might see it as ring rust. I see it as ring rest.
Yes.
And he's coming back healed. He's not coming in with any injuries other than maybe some nicks and whatever from training. But he hasn't fought in 16 months. So what there tells me OSP has a CHANCE.
The tiny gloves they wear on their hands.
You know what, though? I sit here and we did the same thing. Well, you did it anyways. Because I had the reasons Holly Holm could win on that one. And we said the same thing. So, look, maybe your article can win. He can win.
Yeah.
But will he win? That I don't see happening.
Again, anything can happen. What will happen, Jon Jones is going to win by a stoppage of some sort.
Yeah. And he will be the new interim UFC light heavyweight champion.
Yes. And I'm of the opinion that Jones is the greatest fighter of all time. I'm not alone in that opinion.
No.
But this is a legitimate chance to have a second Hall of Fame career.
And I was going to say one more thing, too, about OSP being from Tennessee. Nobody in Knoxville's ever won a prime time.
Oh, man. And it's funny because you mentioned Tennessee. The UFC does a great job with their embedded videos, and OSP was at the Tennessee spring game, and I don't know who he was talking to. And they were asking, who you fighting this week? And he goes, I'm fighting Jon Jones. And then they kind of go back to talking, and the guy kind of goes, he picks his head up and goes, "You're fighting Jon Jones?" And he kind of gives him the look like, dude, good luck with that.
I'm glad the spring game was before that fight.
Yeah, man, I really like OSP as a fighter, but this man is a whole other level. This is a returning Jon Jones.
And he's going to want to make a statement, too. That's the thing that's even more scary, I think, about this fight is Jon Jones is going to want to make a statement. He's not going to want to play around.
He's better than ever, too. He looks better than ever.
He's bigger, stronger. I mean,
he's going to be a heavyweight in 2 fights.
Yeah.
I try to, our job is to come up with reasons to the contrary, but this one just seems like it's tried and true. This one is pretty.
There's always that puncher's chance. They say it in by, but in UFC, it's more than ever because the gloves are smaller. There's a puncher's chance. Again, Jon Jones has been out for 16 months. Will he maybe make a miscalculation on something? We've seen it. People get hit. Jose Aldo got hit.
Yeah.
I mean, you get overzealous, you come charging in, you never know. You never know, but
you never know unless you do.
Yeah. I mean, we won't know until that bell rings Saturday on what we're going to get, but I got to believe Jon Jones is going to come out to make a statement, and maybe that's something that OSP and his corner in these 2-3 weeks leading up to this fight, maybe that's what they're hoping. They're banking on. Hey, he's going to come out charging like a bull. You throw out that, the punch, the left, and let's hope it lands.
Yeah. Throw that punch, put your head between your legs, and kiss your butt goodbye.
I mean, if he takes you down, do what you can. Let's try to get to the second round or something. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what they're going, but they got to have something where it's like, look, this is what we got to do. Just go out there and, because nobody's given OSP a chance.
No. And rightly so.
No, exactly. I mean, I'm not saying that, but, like you've said it many times, there's that puncher's chance in the UFC. We've seen it happen. I mean, by guys like, you didn't think that had a chance. I mean, when we looked at, what was it, Mir and Duffy that one time? Then Mir walks out and knocks him out cold in less than a minute. And I'm like, sometimes guys you think that don't have that chance.
Yeah.
They make it happen. But St. Preux did not take advantage of that chance the last time he was on a main stage. And that's another thing that kind of puts an X against him.
It's going to be a hell of a show on Saturday. I'm very excited for it, but it could be more predictable than we think. But who knows? We could be talking about this next Wednesday or Thursday and being like, was 197 a night to remember in the history of the UFC? We'll see how it goes. There's a quick little news bites I wanted to get to before we got out of here.
Definitely.
Kimbo Slice has his next fight, John. That's the thing.
Next fight, really?
That's going to happen. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's fighting James Thompson July 16th at a Bellator event in London. That is happening despite the fact that Slice is currently suspended in the state of Texas for his positive steroid test. Because apparently it doesn't affect, he's got a 90-day ban currently, which could be expanded inside the U.S., but it doesn't affect him, according to Scott Coker. And if that name, James Thompson, sounds familiar, for all you Elite XC fans from back in the day, the first big fight on CBS, the Tiffany Network, Elite XC Primetime, where Kimbo defeated Thompson via a third-round TKO. So that's happening.
No.
Paul Daly and Josh Koscheck are the undercard.
Why have they not? I just had a question. I mean, what's happened to Lashley?
I don't know. We should try to figure that out. We should try to
dig into that a little bit more because I mean it just seems like he's dropped off. I wonder if maybe he's sitting out and show up at the UFC.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I mean, TNA seems to be going out of business, so we need something to do. And also, my not favorite fighter, Fedor Emelianenko, his next fight is set for June.
Who's he fighting? Bob the Grocer?
Close. He's fighting, in the great words of Quentin Rampage Jackson, Balbabado. Fabio Maldonado gets Fedor to head a Rizin card in St. Petersburg, Russia on June 17th. The bout will be contested at heavyweight. The great Fabio Maldonado, 5-6 in the UFC, undefeated boxer. But Fedor versus Balbabado, in the words of Rampage, in June. Excited? Get excited.
Oh, I'm jumping up and down. I don't get it, man. I don't get it. I don't. Get him some competition, man. Make some money.
Yeah. But, hey, Benson Henderson is fighting on Friday night, which is cool for Bellator against Koreshnikov, I think.
Yeah, title fight. Yeah.
That is a title fight. Koreshnikov hasn't fought in like a year and a half, I think. Because I don't know what that goes on with those titles over in Bellator. But
too many Shamrock fights in between.
Yeah. But it's cool to see Bendo in action. And I think there's a couple decent fights on that undercard, which remain to look at. So lots of stuff going on in the MMA world.
But one rules.
One rules, and there's one tweet that's been put up 2 hours ago, or 3 hours ago at this point. And it's from Conor McGregor, basically telling the world where this is at right now. And it simply says, I got my bills paid, my money made, and the entire game slayed. Hashtag your move. So, it's the UFC's move. We'll see what they do tomorrow, Friday, at their big UFC 200 press conference. The world waits with bated breath to see what the hell happens. But man, if they screw this up, they're going to regret it. But they have to turn all this negativity into a positive somehow, whether it's putting McGregor back on the card or whether it's some sort of replacement we don't see coming. They've got a major opportunity here, and I really hope they don't let it pass them by. What do you think?
You know what? I don't even know what to think, honestly, anymore with this whole thing.
Fair?
It's just so... I don't even know. I mean, what do you do? What do you do with UFC? Because either way, they're almost in a lose situation no matter what they do.
They're about to hit the nuclear option. We'll see if they actually pull the trigger.
If they have the red button.
They get their hands on the end of that button. And if the Fertittas and Dana White want to do it, they can do it. If not, we'll see how 200 shakes out. So that's all we got for you guys. Hopefully, I think the audio issues cleared out after that first segment, so we should be good there. You can find us online, thefullmountmma.com. You can find us a whole bunch of articles. You can reach our Twitter and YouTube page with little widgets on the side of the page, which you can clearly see. At The Full Mount on Twitter. At BeatCore11 for me on Twitter. I will gladly discuss tons of MMA stuff with you guys on Twitter. I'd love to get some questions. If you want to write in, if you have a question for the podcast, let us know on Twitter. Sean at SS Sports Talk. I guess does the same go for you, or you just block everybody?
No, I don't block everybody. But listen, if you disagree with me, you might get blocked.
You might get thrown.
I'm letting
down.
you know now, buddy. There's no. What were they? Tweeters? No tweeter is bigger than Sean Stanley Sports Talk.
There is no chaos in this dojo.
And that's just a joke, by the way. Just a joke for those that don't know sarcasm.
Yes. So thank you guys for listening. We'll be back next week. Same time, same place. We're on iTunes. Please subscribe to us on iTunes. Review the show. Tell us if you like it. Tell us if you think we suck. It's fine. It doesn't matter.
Let him know, not me. Be nice to me, please.
If you want to direct your vitriol at me, it doesn't matter, because a reaction is a reaction. At least that's what they tell Roman Reigns, right?
Well, yeah, you got to do something.
Yeah, a boo is still noise. So subscribe on iTunes, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, do all that good stuff. You won't regret it. For Sean, I'm Brian. Thank you guys for listening. We'll talk to you next week on TFM Live, the official podcast of thefullmountmma.com.
Podcast is brought to you by thefullmountmma.com. Check us out on Twitter at thefullmount.